It's been a while since my last tutorial on Legion TD. But I am coming now with a video where I will show you how to correctly push wood and what towers to build in this situation. Before we dive in, I want to clarify that this strategy is mainly focused on the PRCCX3 mode, just to avoid any confusion. Usually, there are two types of games. The first type is when everyone is pushing lumber, and the second one is when one player is holding while the rest of the team is pushing lumber. Right now, we're in the second scenario. For the start, I began with 6 skeletons, upgraded 2 of them to skeletors, added 2 turrets, and made 3 wisps. There are 2 important rules that you should follow when pushing wood. One is to do not leak the first 3 levels, except if they send on level 3. And second, make sure you push hard all the time. It's very important to clean up your lane on the first levels, otherwise, you will start leaking too much too early in the game. Since skeletors have normal armor and the next 2 levels deal normal damage, it's essential to place some units with heavy armor to minimize the chance of leaking. Don't overestimate skeletors. Even with 6 fully upgraded, you can still leak with a champion at level 2. Also, don't build too many units with normal armor for the early game. I recommend trying to strike a balance between normal and heavy armor if possible. Normal armor becomes more effective after level 3. Very important. As a pusher, you only need to prepare for the next level. You don't have to build for, say, level 5 just to minimize leaking. Your focus should be on holding as well as possible for the upcoming level. And as a pusher, I don't recommend using expensive units, like Purple did here. They're too expensive, and it's better to have more weaker units than a few stronger ones. Outcasts also can't hold level 2 with the champion because they need 2 hits to kill the murlocs. Usually, I recommend having about 70% of your towers as frontline units and the remaining 30% as your ranged towers. Something around those lines. I've seen many players too cautious to push lumber because they're afraid of leaking. If you have a holder, you need to push lumber and, as I said, aim not to leak for the first 3 levels. Leaking afterward is less concerning. Levels 4 and 5 are strong, and you'll likely leak there most of the time. You can recover on level 6 if they don't send units. Another crucial point is to avoid building auras, especially in the early game. You don't need damage, healing, or slowing auras. Just focus on building as many towers as possible. I'd only recommend building auras after level 5 or 6, or if you have no other options. But I still wouldn't suggest building a slowing aura. It's expensive and not for you. Your holder should have that aura to hold better, but you don't need it too early in the game. A good aura for you can be Mermaid, because can keep your front line alive, but also, don't build it too early. Focus on units like Peewee, Fangtooths, Novices, Raiders, Militia, Pandaren, Ogre Pulverizer, Skeletor, or Harbinger. They're cheap and build a front line with a mix of normal and heavy armor. Don't hesitate to build Militia. They're particularly good for levels 5 and 8 due to their normal armor. And I'd suggest skipping Fangtooths after level 3, as they're unarmored and will die quickly later in the game, unless you have no other options. Here, I decided to slow down my push and build some magic damage for level 4. We're not looking great for the next level, and I want to minimize leaking. I suggest you pushing wood even when you are sending. Because if they are sending next to, you have time to recover all your wood wasted on upgrading, and you will gain more wood to upgrade your king if needed. I've seen many players hesitant to send chariots when the king has the wave spell. Keep in mind that chariots clear the enemy's front line much faster and die last due to their long range. Chariots are also super effective against eggs and phoenixes. Relying solely on wyverns and blood orcs will take a long time to break through a front line of those tower types. So, make sure to send chariots even when the wave spell is active. As you can see here, I prefer having just one upgraded violet and focusing on upgrading my skeletors for level 5. Skeletors are super effective, and even with only one violet, the skeletors stay alive long enough for the violet and the rest of my ranged towers to deal damage. As you can see, I've pushed lumber as hard as possible, and being at 10/7 for level 5 is more than great. Since I don't have enough gold to upgrade my destroyer for level 6, I'll opt for the Peewee instead. Keep pushing lumber, like I said, as much as you can. A good push should be around 10/7 or 10/8 by level 7. But remember, not everyone needs to push as hard as possible. 1 or 2 people among those who are pushing lumber can afford to stay a bit lower if they have really bad rolls. You can decide during the game who will stay a bit lower on lumber or not. Hades could be an option here, because with so many units up front, the Infernal will die very late, giving it time to deal damage. But since I have other good units to upgrade, I'll save Hades for another time. Sending an extra hermit for any level when the king has the immolate spell is beneficial. It increases the chance that one of them will survive, and the hermit counters this spell effectively. A 4300 value send is not great, not terrible. We don't know exactly how much we sent, but I assume we sent at least 5,000. Keep pushing wood. If you're pushing hard, I suggest you aim to stop around 10/11, 10/12 before level 9. Even though we talked about this before, let me explain how to play with the king. Good king control can save lives and time. Given that there aren't many dinos, I suggest you focus on them first. After that, you can continue with the chariots. Considering we have the Immolate spell and not many wyverns, I'm going to take them down as well. But if there are too many dinos or wyverns, focus only on chariots. Make sure your team also keeps taunting the chariots during this time. Taunting cancels the upcoming attack. Given that none of the units I've rolled have normal armor, I'll upgrade the remaining units and build the healing aura. The paladin isn't worth it here because it's a ranged level. Many of my units will split up and lose the armor aura.
It has begun. Job's done. Enlighten me. Enlighten me. That's a given.
I recommend giving the taunt to the player who has pushed with the most, in order to leak as little as possible. I leaked very little considering that I'm 10-11 and I'm undervalued for this level. Also, I don't recommend summoning the champion when you're pushing this hard, especially at levels where you're likely to leak with or without the champion. You can summon the champion, for example, at level 6, when you have a chance to hold but you need to buy some time. However, in this case, at levels 8 and 9, you're likely to leak anyway. Here I'll build as many harpies as I can because they're really good at this level and will help me hold as well as possible. There's no need to push wood at this moment, as we'll have enough to send. Even though I could go to 10-12, I considered it sufficient because we lost a lot of time at level 8. I strongly suggest you send at this level if your king has 0 lives, like the other team, and the opposing team has 2. It's very hard to turn this match around at level 10. Only if, let's say, you have perfect towers for level 10 and you believe you'll hold a low send from the other team, then not sending here might be an option. But in most cases, it's a mistake. Holding level 9 with wood at 10-11 is somewhat of an achievement. But I also got lucky with receiving harpies last level. There's no need to play with Phoenix if you're a pusher. It's not going to help you and it costs a lot. Phoenix is more suited for the holder role. You surely have other alternatives aside from this tower. Now all that's left is to try and stall as much time as possible and aim to take down as many level 10 bosses as we can.
Job's done.
From here on out, it's the holder's job to secure this level and win the match for us.
Upgrade complete.
That's a given.
Job done. Job
I
done.
pledge my loyalty.
Door, earth,
I'm with it.
fire. Heed my call.
I am prepared. Enlighten me.
Upgrade complete.
For my brothers,
Upgrade complete. Job done.
thy bidding.
Upgrade complete.
It has begun.
Job done. Earth and fire. Heed my call.
I am prepared.
To wrap things up, let me remind you of a few key points to remember as a pusher. The mix between normal and heavy armor is crucial. Do your best to hold the first 3 levels without ascend, while also pushing properly. Stick to cheap, numerous units and avoid auras at least in the early game. I hope this tutorial helps you become a better pusher. Stay tuned, as I'll be posting another video soon on how to play as a holder. With love, Droid Prime.